afternoon, everybody. So first of all, let me just say, we are living during the most extraordinary time ever in human history, right? The only time better than this is tomorrow. So I have a perspective that I've gotten from the companies that I've had the honor and pleasure to start. And the perspective is one of abundance, that we are truly heading towards a world in which we're going to be able to meet the needs of every man, woman, and child over the next 20 to 30 years. A world in which we can make our grandest dreams come true. And as I go out and I speak about abundance, at least in the early days, I had a lot of people who said to me, Peter, how can you say we're heading towards a world of abundance, where the world is better than you can possibly imagine? Haven't you heard about the school shootings? Haven't you heard about the debt crisis in Europe? How can you say the world is getting better when we have all these problems? And after a while of listening to this critique and criticism, it hit me that we're living during a day and age where the news media is a drug pusher, and negative news is their drug. And in every device that we have, our smartphone, our cell phone, our tablet, our newspaper, our radio, we're being fed negative news 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, over and over and over again. And there's a reason for this, right? They're not just doing it for fun. It turns out that as our brains were evolving on the savannas of Africa hundreds of thousands and millions of years ago, back then, if you missed a piece of good news, well, that's too bad. If you missed a piece of bad news, like the rustle in the leaves as a tiger, not the wind, then your genes were out of the gene pool. And so we evolved an ancient piece of our temporal lobe called the amygdala. And the amygdala scans everything we see and everything we hear for negative news. And if it sees it, it triggers it, and we're on red alert. And we pay 10 times more attention to the negative news than the positive news. And it's for that reason that the old adage, if it bleeds, it leads, is so true. And why our politicians are fear-mongering all the time. But you have to ask yourself the question, is that the way the world really is? And I would posit to you, it's not. Of course, we have our share of problems. But over the last 100 years, the last century has been extraordinary. Over the last 100 years, the human lifespan has more than doubled. The per capita income for every nation on this planet has more than tripled. The cover of The Economist 6 months ago had a cover that said, toward the end of poverty. We've taken 1.5 billion people out of extreme poverty in the last 20 years. Steven Pinker at Harvard just wrote a book called The Better Angels of Our Nature, in which he shows we are living during the most peaceful time ever in human history. You wouldn't know that watching CNN, would you? The cost of energy has dropped 20-fold, food has dropped 13-fold, transportation has dropped 100-fold, communications has dropped 1,000-fold. But yet, or better yet than that, we're living in a day and age today where the innovators, the people who can solve the world's problems, isn't just the kings and queens from 500 years ago, or the robber barons from 100 years ago, or the major corporations. It's all of us. What I find extraordinarily exciting, what I'm so, what I live life and love it every day about, is the notion that we're heading towards a world where people can stop complaining about problems and start fixing them. The tools that we have in our hands as individuals are extraordinary. So I run the Singularity University, which we teach the top graduate students about AI, robotics, synthetic biology, cloud computing, 3D printing, networks, sensors. Literally, the tools that are in the hands of entrepreneurs today are only what governments and the largest corporations had 20 years ago. And so today, an entrepreneur can start a company that can touch the lives of 1 billion people in a positive fashion. It's never been that way, right? So when I was with Muhtar Kent a few months ago talking at Coca-Cola, the conversation was, you used to have to be Coca-Cola with arms and legs in 150 countries to touch that many people. Today you can be a kid with a great idea. The world is changing. For the multinationals here, your competition is no longer the multinational other side of the planet. Your competition is now the kid who comes up with a great idea, who goes at lightning speed and transforms your industry faster than you can do it. That's the world we're living in today. And while that might be painful for some large companies, it's amazing for hope. Because the number of people watching and finding problems and saying, damn it, I'm not going to wait for someone else to solve it, I'm going to solve it myself, that number is exploding. So in 2010, we had 2 billion people connected online. 2 billion. By 2020, that number is going from 2 billion to 5 billion. 3 billion new minds, at least 3 billion new minds, are entering the global conversation this decade. These are 3 billion people who are the new consumers. They're inventors, they're discoverers, they're creators. If they're not your customers, they're your customers' customers. They represent tens of trillions of dollars entering the global economy. They also represent, for me, the greatest epic era of innovation ever, ever. Because these people scrapping and scraping for their living, when they have access to now AI and cloud computing and 3D printing and all these things which are now accessible to them, are going to become extraordinary entrepreneurs. The problems they solve are going to become revenue flows here. We're going to have this interesting reversal of the trend of innovation. So I believe that there is no problem that can't be solved. In fact, there's a beautiful marriage in which the world's biggest problems are the world's biggest business opportunities. What an extraordinary time to be alive, where I can help the lives of 1 billion people and become a billionaire in the process. That's the world that I'm excited about. So I work on this, right, with the XPrize Foundation and a new spin-out we've created called Hero X, in which we challenge the world. At XPrize, it's like, what are the world's biggest problems? So we took on spaceflight. We now have a competition called the Qualcomm Tricorder XPrize. We're asking teams around the world to build a handheld mobile device that in the middle of the night at 2 a.m., a mom or dad can diagnose their kid with that better than a team of board-certified doctors. We call it the Qualcomm Tricorder XPrize. Tricorder from Star Trek for the fellow Trekkies in the audience here. And this is a device that you can speak to. It's got AI on the cloud. You can cough on it, can do the RNA or DNA analysis of the bacteria in your saliva. You can do a finger blood prick and do your blood chemistry. We had 330 teams around the world who entered that competition. I didn't know there was 330 people even thinking about this. We're down to the top 30 finalists. We expect a winner in the next 18 months. And in success, it's about transforming at a global scale healthcare. We're getting ready to launch a global literacy XPrize, hopefully in the next few months, in which we're going to be asking teams to build a handheld, a piece of software that can go on any tablet, any smartphone, that can transform the learning experience around the world. This is for kids in the middle of no place, where there's no teachers, there are no schools. And we're asking the winner of this competition to build a piece of software that can take an illiterate child from nothing to reading, writing, numeracy, and coding inside of 2 years. And in success, that will impact 300 million kids on this planet. So between creating global literacy and global health, it's about creating this world of abundance. You see, through XPrize, through Hero X, in which we're launching even smaller competitions, so all of these things, it's about incentivizing collaboration and competition, because that's the way we're wired. So for me, I believe we're heading towards this extraordinary world of abundance. Ultimately, technology is the force that takes us from what used to be scarce and makes it abundant. We talk about energy scarcity. We live on a planet bathed in 5,000 times more energy than we consume as a species in a year. And if you look at the rate of solar growth and the cost drop, we're probably 15 years away from at least 50% energy from the sun here in the United States. Once we have energy, talk about water, we live on a water planet. The technology is coming online to give us abundance in water. And then think about the Kenyan teenager on a smartphone. That teenager in the middle of Kenya or Mumbai has more access to information and knowledge than President Clinton had 20 years ago. Google for that kid is the same as Google for Larry Page. So we are living into a world, I believe, where there is no problem that cannot be solved. And that we're creating a generation of people who are thirsting for problems to solve, with the notion that my life can be meaningful by taking on and solving those problems. So it's about a world of abundance. It's about a world of extreme creativity. It's about a world of empowerment. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. An honor and a pleasure.
He makes dreams reality on an everyday basis. And I asked him before, what do you do for fun when we were just talking as friends? And he said, I'm doing it right now. So it's pretty amazing that he's put his passions to work to better humanity. One thing that you've continued to do through the course of your career is collaborate with other very brilliant and passionate people. Why is collaboration so important to innovation?
It's one thing. I mean, it's doing more quickly. You know, we all have a limited life on this planet until we extend it, but that's a different story. And it's fun. I've always built my companies, done my work with people. And in fact, you know, the joy of life is who you go through life with, right? I mean, that's, you know, the impact you have on the planet and who you spend your time dreaming with and doing with and being with is so critical.
And so one of your most recent collaborations that you alluded to earlier is with Craig Venter.
Yeah.
Can you, I mean, what you told me before was shocking.
So this is a fun venture. When I went to medical school, I was in the middle of medical school and I saw a show on sea turtles, and it said that sea turtles can live hundreds of years. And I said, well, if they can, why can't I? And that's always been a hidden passion, and I've lived my life making my dreams come true. And 3 years ago, we started a secret project that we announced on March 4th. It's called Human Longevity, Inc. It's with Craig Venter, who's my co-founder, and he's the first guy to sequence the human genome, create the first synthetic life form, and then Bob Hariri, who's one of the top stem cell CEOs on the planet. And we are building the largest genome sequencing facility on the planet. We'll be sequencing 100,000 genomes per year, full genomes, microbiomes, full physiology, phenotyping. It's going to be the largest database ever of human physiology. And our mission is to make 100 years old and you 60. It's about aesthetic, mobility, and cognition well past the age of 100. And I really believe we have a shot of impacting that within this decade.
Within this decade. In 10 years, we'll see tangible results from this?
Yeah. Yeah, massively. Yeah. That's my full expectation.
It's truly amazing. Another thing you've done, and you've been very sort of a leader in this, is using competition to increase innovation, whether it's through XPrize. Why is competition so important to innovation? So, as humans, we're basically lazy. I hate to say that, most people are basically lazy, and if you give them all the energy, all the time to go and do something, they'll take the energy, they'll take the time. And remember that the day before something is truly a breakthrough, it's a crazy idea, right? If you get that, the day before something is really a breakthrough, it's a crazy idea. Most large organizations don't try crazy ideas because they have a high failure rate. And so the only place that you can really truly get a series of crazy ideas being rapidly iterated and tried is in competition situations where people have to literally, in a constrained situation, throw out the old way they do things. And they try brand new radical ideas. Now, 99% may fail, and one may win, but that's all you need is for one to win. So at XPrize, we take on 2 or 3 global grand challenges each year. We're very proud in HeroX. We've created a platform that allows the crowd now to design prizes, fund prizes, and we're hoping to get to eventually hundreds or thousands of prizes. And again, I want people to get the mindset when they see a problem, solve a problem, not complain about a problem. You know, in your work, you've done a lot of things with space. You've solved a lot of problems, but and you've even said once that it's immoral not to think about going off planet. But here on planet Earth, there are so many pressing problems. Right behind us, the oceans being one of the most pressing problems, the health of the ocean that exists. How are you helping solve some of those problems?
Wendy Schmidt, who's Eric Schmidt's wife, she runs the Family Foundation, has been a great partner with us, and we ran an XPrize called the Wendy Schmidt Oil Cleanup Competition when the BP oil spill went on. It turned out that oil spill cleanup had been the same for 20 years, had not changed since Exxon Valdez. We challenged teams to figure out how to double the oil spill cleanup rate. We had 350 teams enter that competition. The winning team increased it 600%. And it's like, why hadn't you done that before? Right? So you clean up six times faster, so you clean up before it hits the ocean the coastline. We've now launched the Wendy Schmidt Ocean Health XPrize to look at ocean acidification, and we've made a commitment at the XPrize Foundation called the Go Deeper campaign to launch 5 ocean XPrizes over the course of the next 5 to 6 years.
In your competition, you've been adamant that constraints are critical in competitions. Why are constraints so critical?
Again, I talk about this in my book Abundance. I say instead of thinking out of the box, you want to go shopping for a really small box, because when you constrain people, you say you don't have 2 years and 2,000 people and $2 million. You've got a month, 10 people, and $1,000. People throw out the old way they did things because they couldn't possibly do it the same way. They don't have the money, the time, so they have to. People then say one of two things: impossible, can't do it, and they opt out, or they say, okay, I'll give it a shot, and they try something crazy. Again, 99% may fail, but the one who succeeds in this constrained situation has fundamentally created a breakthrough.
When you talked about Singularity University, I think a lot of us have read about it, but what is the absolute mission of Singularity University, and what does a graduate of Singularity University walk away with?
So I love it. So we run a graduate studies program. We have about 3,000 applicants for 80 spots. We're up in Mountain View. We're backed by Google and Genentech and Cisco and Nokia, Autodesk. And the students come in for 10 weeks. And for the first 5 weeks, they're graduate students and entrepreneurs. The first 5 weeks, they focus on all the exponential tech: AI, robotics, synthetic biology, 3D printing, all that stuff taught by the very best. In the next 5 weeks, their goal is to pick a global grand challenge. Pick a problem that a billion people face and start a company that can touch the lives of those billion people in 10 years. That's the metric. It's called 10 to the 9th plus companies. Impact a billion people positively. And then we make our money basically by running those kinds of executive-style programs for Fortune 200 companies, because these technologies are what will put those companies out of business if they're not watching it. It's Kodak and Instagram sort of moments.
You founded one company that completely confounds me. So Planetary Resources is a company that effectively is trying to lasso asteroids to extract valuable minerals from them. Can you explain how this actually works? Because it's bigger than my imagination how this is practically possible. So I need you to explain to people how this is viable and how is this going to actually work.
You don't have an asteroid mining company?
I'm working on it.
If you think of what's driven human exploration over all history, it's been looking for resources. It's the only thing that's consistently moved humanity forward. And I've had the chance to start a dozen space companies. One company does zero gravity flights. The company's taken 8 people to the International Space Station. But it's been small potatoes compared to the notion of resources. So if you look at it, the Earth is a crumb in a supermarket filled with resources. Everything we hold of value on Earth, metals, minerals, energy, real estate, is in infinite quantities in space. And it turns out that there are a certain number of near-Earth approaching asteroids that come close to the Earth. Sometimes they hit the Earth. That's not a good thing. But they come close to the Earth, energetically much closer than the Moon. And we have built a team of people. We've taken the best minds out of JPL. My team ran the last 4 Mars missions: Spirit, Opportunity, Phoenix, Curiosity. And we have our first launch this fall. And our first asteroid target, 1993 JU3, comes by in December 2016. It's a $1 trillion asset. And our goal is to go out to it and prospect. We'll getting the stuff out of it later will be later, but we have Bechtel as a major investor, 3D Systems.
What? Okay, so how do you measure success with that? I mean, what's the ROI on a project like that?
We're going out to the asteroids for 3 materials: fuels that will stay in space, hydrogen and oxygen, very rich. Some of these asteroids are 20% water, which is the space shuttle main engine rocket fuel; nickel, iron, cobalt for construction materials. And then there's a class of asteroids that are about 1,000 times richer in platinum group metals than the platinum mines on Earth. So my game plan, don't tell anybody, is I'm going to buy puts on the platinum market. Announce the mission now.
Wow. So, when your life ends on this planet or any other planet you may be on at that time, what what would be your crowning achievement? How do you want to leave this world or anywhere else? What is the one thing you want to accomplish before your time is up?
I think it's making humanity a multiplanetary species is part of it. I think that's possible during our lifetime right now, that thousands of years from now, when we look back at whatever humanity's become, we're going to look at these next few decades as the moment in time where the human race moved irreversibly off the planet. That's been my massively transformative purpose, and the other has been taking on grand challenges, because I do believe there is no problem on this planet that cannot be solved. There are three things: wealth, passion, and technology, and there's enough of those to take on every problem, period. Stop, end of sentence.
So I think a good question to close with, and we appreciate your time so much, and you're such an inspiration to everybody here. How do you stay so optimistic?
By not reading the news. And I'm half serious about that, right? Our mindset matters. Your mindset matters. And your mindset is a function of two things: the people you hang out with and what you let into your mind. And we give up. I mean, we literally give up to the news media the ability to feed us all the shit they want over and over and over again. If I have to watch Flight 370 one more time on CNN, I'm going to shoot myself. And with all due respect to those families and the hardships they're going through, CNN has not become about global news; it's become about crisis news. And it's a drug. And I use my social network to feed me the news that's relevant to me. I use my Google feeds to tell me about the technologies relevant to me, and I do not let them change my mindset. And I just ask you to think about that as you go forward. When you walk out of your hotel room in the morning tomorrow, step over the newspaper.
Well, you're a true inspiration. You make the imagined reality, and I think it's humbling for us when we're embarking on a weekend full of optimism, or a week full of optimism, where we're trying to learn from each other and really embrace the spirit of PTTOW, which is optimism, innovation, and friendship. You're the best example to start this off. So please, everybody, give Dr. Peter Diamandis a warm round of applause.